I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, folks. This episode is with actor and musician Kirk Bovill. In this episode, we talk about Kirk switching from the tech industry into the acting industry and the steps that sort of led to that. We also talk about him beginning his career at the Comedy Store as part of an improv group. That's a pretty cool story. We talk about his lovely wife, Joni Bovill, and if you didn't catch her episode, make sure you go back and get it. That was a great one also. And of course, we talk about Kirk's new film out now called Vice. You know, the one with Christian Bale and Steve Carell about Dick Cheney and George Bush. Well, Kirk plays Henry Kissinger in that film, and he knocks it out of the park. And finally, Kirk lets me play one of his songs. It's called There Is Joy, so make sure you hang around to the end of the episode. Enjoy, guys. This is my episode with actor, musician, and all-around nice guy, Kirk Bovill.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street, Kirk Bovill. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing really good. Appreciate you having me on. How's your day going?
My day is going well. I cannot complain. Now, my listeners will know that a couple of months ago, I got to interview your lovely wife, Joni Bovill. How is she doing?
She is doing really good. She just wrapped up on season 5 of Bosch recently, and it got picked up for season 6, which will be for 2020. That's pretty cool. Season 5 wouldn't even come out till I think of April, March of this year. And then probably about June of this year is when she'll start up filming again for 2020. So that's always good when you got something that far out in advance. She's doing good.
Well, that is amazing. I love that show, and she is wonderful on it.
Yeah, she loves being on it too. And they really like her a lot, and they keep bringing her back. So it's really cool.
That is cool. So let's get to know you, Kirk.
Okay.
Tell me where you're from, Kirk. I know it's somewhere in Nebraska, but where at?
Yeah, I grew up in Nebraska. Both my folks were teachers, and, they taught like in 2 different towns, little towns. So I went up through junior high in Hastings, Nebraska. And then in high school, I was in a little town about 3,500, Aurora, Nebraska is where I graduated from high school. So both my folks were teachers at Aurora, and my dad was a coach as well. From there, I went to the University of Nebraska for undergrad, and then I went to LSU for graduate school. Just kind of kept going back to back.
Oh, cool. What were you majoring in? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, that's kind of interesting. I came into college, and I tested so high on ACT scores in science, and I was getting scholarships in science. I started off in pre-med, and I've always was a good student. It's just that really wasn't where my passion was. And honestly, I wasn't as dedicated as a student as you need to be if you're going to be a doctor, because the guys I knew that were really hardcore pre-med students, at 18, they were mature beyond their years. They were highly scheduled out, like to the nanosecond, what they were going to do. And I wasn't like that. I was a typical college student. So I started off with pre-med, shifted over into get a degree in biology. The idea was I was probably following my dad's footsteps in coaching, because University of Nebraska, the last 3 years, I got involved with the women's track team. Gary Pepin, who is still the head coach at the University of Nebraska, he brought me on as an undergraduate assistant, and I happened to be there at the right place at the right time. And they won 3 national titles when I was there, just 3 indoor titles back to back to back. And that is where my head was really coaching at the collegiate level. And from there, I got approached by Florida State, LSU, University of Texas about going and do a grad assistant coach in track. So I was looking at all the schools. Florida State just really didn't have the money, and I loved their coach, Gary Winkler. He was one of the best in the nation, actually one of the world-class coaches. I loved Austin, Texas, but there was a coaching transition at the time that I did know of, so I landed at LSU, which would have been my third choice at the time, not knowing anything about Deep South. I'd only been to Baton Rouge one time for track meet. And down at LSU, I was part of the staff that built the powerhouse dynasty that LSU track and field is to this day. I was one of the guys. We came in, there's a whole new staff, and I think the team had been last in the SEC, maybe had scored maybe a point in the national level in their existence of the program. within 3 years, we were the NCAA indoor and outdoor national champions. And then LSU, after I left, they continued to win like 10 straight outdoor titles, which is unprecedented. And I loved it down there. I'm still really, really close to those athletes. But that's where the push was. The push was at that time, I figured I was going to just keep coaching because I got down at LSU, finished grad school. And even in grad school, interestingly, I went there originally doing the exercise physiology program. They have a really good one down there. And I thought, crap, I'm going to need to get a PhD in this field to do anything. And I ran into a couple guys on campus who were in the journalism school taking the advertising track. And I switched graduate programs, which normally no one ever does, right? I went from one graduate school to another. I got accepted to that, and then graduating with the master's degree in journalism at LSU, and some of it was the advertising track. But I came out and I got offered college jobs, and I turned them down because the money at the time was just not there. And I was like, golly, I loved doing it, but it was like no money. And I ended up out in Silicon Valley in California. I knew as a kid I was going to end up in California. You know, growing up, my mom, at the time, 3 of her sisters lived in California. And my mom grew up on a ranch in Nebraska. But when they all got out of school, all my moms, her 6 sisters and her brother, they all moved away from Nebraska. And they all either lived in the West Coast or the East Coast. And I always visited as a kid in California. I knew that's where I was ultimately going to be. So I headed up to California after grad school, ultimately ended up getting a job in the high-tech field, which I'd never in a million years thought I'd be doing. I ended up being like really well-known marketing guy in fiber optics. I became like internationally known in that field. I used to travel around the world, speaking all over the world. I was published in that field, but I was really a marketing evangelist for all this next generation networking equipment that used fiber optics. And I was with a couple of big companies, and I was with a startup, and I was doing that for a number of years. And towards the end, it felt like I was watching paint dry. You know, I made good money, and I loved traveling, and I loved the people I was working with, but there was nothing creative about it. And throughout my whole life, both my folks were creative people, very artistic. My mom is a real good artist, and she's a musician, plays, 6, 7 instruments. And then my dad is a teacher and a coach, but my dad also did a one-man show as Mark Twain. He was better than Hal Holbrook. And Hollywood found my dad in Nebraska in the 1970s in one of those little towns, and they spotted him, and he would come out and do national commercials for Wells Fargo Bank as Mark Twain. But he never pursued that industry because he had 4 kids by the time he was like 26, So I had that kind of in me. My mom gave me a guitar she got with green stamps when I was 10 years old. I still have that guitar. I wrote my first song at 10. I wrote my first play at 13, but I was always heavily involved in athletics. I never really thought about that, but those were seeds that were planted for me later on in my life. And when Joni and I were still in high tech and we were in the Silicon Valley, we started our own independent record label, Elmo Records, which was named after her father, Elmo Green. Her dad was a sharecropper in Mississippi. So Joni and I did a couple gospel albums that were good enough. We got distribution pickup, and we had songs hit number 1 on the Indie Top 50 charts. So all this was while we were both in high tech. And we started getting people asked us to come down to Los Angeles. And, but I was just thinking of work, and the music was a side thing. We were getting successful in it, but I was just focused on high tech stuff. Job opened up in LA, and I was doing it for about 6 years. And one day I came home from work, and Joni says she got called in to audition for this sketch improv group that was going to open up this huge comedy show called Trippin' on Tuesdays, which was at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard, the real famous Comedy Store. And it was like the big hit show. It was all the top black comics would come to that show, and the place would be packed, and it would be celebrities, it'd be athletes, but it was like all the top black comics. Sometimes Kevin Hart might be hosting, and, Chris Rock would be there, Mike Epps at that time, all these big comedians. And Joni, as you know, is African-American. She got called to read for this. She goes, you got to go do it. And I said, you want me to go, the middle-aged white guy, to the all-black comedy show and audition for it? And she goes, you'll kill it. And I got cast in that. And that was in 2006. And I'm up there, and sometimes I might be like, Spike Lee might be in the front row, and I'd be roasting him. And he'd say something to me afterwards. Like, he liked it. I mean, he's a New York guy. He thought it was funny. And one day I'm up there doing fake spoken word, like poetry. We're doing poetry, but I'm doing fake spoken word. The guy comes up to me, and he's joking. He goes, yo, you're a funny white guy. It was Robin Williams. he was watching us. And I came home and I told Joni, I said, I really got to give this a shot, man. I'm making good money in high tech, but it's just like watching paint dry for me now. And I told my boss I was thinking about it. I had to fly to a business meeting in Japan. So here I'm in Japan doing due diligence for an acquisition of a company, like tens of millions of dollars acquisition. And at night, I'm like on this comedy stage, right? I come back from Tokyo and I tell my boss that I got to give this a shot. I know he's thinking I'm nuts. He's thinking it's like a midlife crisis or something. So I just got to do it, man, because I don't want to look back and wish I had given it a shot. And I did. I took a couple formal camera technique classes for acting. And in 2 months, I booked my first film, which is White Lightning. So right out the gate, the first thing I've ever done, here I was getting flown to Europe to do a movie that would premiere at Sundance in 2009. Carrie Fisher was in the cast. And I've made a living ever since then, generally playing redneck bad guys, mostly, And, of course, the current one is Henry Kissinger is on the other end of what I've been doing. Usually I'm playing like these super redneck guys. But that's what I've been doing, and that's been going on nonstop, really, since 06, 07 timeframe.
That's really cool. That's a great story. So did you say that your mom collected green stamps and bought you a guitar?
Yeah, I believe it's green stamps, and it was the Yamaha G65A. I still have it. In fact, it's in my mom's apartment. My folks split up when they were around like 50, and my mom went and lived and taught in South America in Colombia for 20 years. Most of us in Colombia for 20 years.
Wow.
And, yeah, so since she's been back in the U.S., she got used to that really warm weather. She went back to Nebraska and was basically froze her butt off, for a couple of years. Now, she lives about a mile or so from me and Joni in an apartment. I've given her that guitar back, so she has that in her apartment. She usually will be playing a piano or Congo drums or a guitar, you name it, she plays it. But that guitar has been with me 47 years almost.
That's amazing.
And that guitar will be with me until the day I die. Then I'll pass it off. That's one thing I would never sell that, never. I would give that to a niece or a nephew. I wrote my first songs on that, and I still have it.
That is so cool. So a lot of the people who listen to podcasts are really young. Can you explain what green stamps are?
Yeah. Well, for your young listeners, back in the olden days, I think when you went to the grocery store, that's where I think you got them. Like, she would buy groceries, and whatever that dollar amount was, they would give you a certain number of stamps for that value, and you could collect these stamps, and those stamps could turn into like a certain amount. You fill out these books, and they would turn into a value, and there might be items that you could get, and whatever that would be. And Mom saved up enough green stamps. That first guitar was purchased by green stamps.
That is a really, really cool story.
Isn't that wild?
That is so cool. So when you were at the Comedy Store all those years ago, was Mitzi Shore there?
Mitzi still owned it, yeah. Now, I would never necessarily run into her, but you'd run into everybody. You might run into Dice Clay, like I said, Robin Williams. Everybody would be there. Everybody. Snoop Dogg would come rolling in. There'd be guys, Shamar Moore. There'd be all the Lakers would be there. There'd just be different people from TV and film. But it was surreal. You park your car down. You go in the back way where all those comics are going all those years. And you're going in that back way. And, you go up on that, you're on the side of the stage. And there was times Kevin Hart would introduce me. That's what's wild. I mean, it's before Kevin really, really blew up. This would have been when he kind of had done like Soul Plane and was, on the road, but it's before he became just the giant brand that he is now. Sometimes he'd be in town. He might be introducing me, like going, hey, we got Kirk here from, going down the list of people who are in that sketch group. I tell you the thing about it, I was never nervous doing that. Never. That's why I knew I wanted to give everything a shot, because when I knew I was going to give it a shot, Joni supported me doing it. And I called my dad. I go, hey, Dad, I'm going to do this. And he goes, I just got 2 questions for you. Are you good enough to do it at that level? And 2, can you make a living doing it? Which would be like what a dad would say, right? And I did, and I have it. And later in life was always fun because I would talk to him about it. Because my dad really could have come. If my dad would have been a guy who would have been a world-class actor in Hollywood, he would have been so good. But, he had different responsibilities and obligations. Him and Mom had kids real young, and there's no way you were going to leave Nebraska at that, with 4 kids and try to make it in Hollywood. You just couldn't do it. But we would talk about the business, later in life. And then, of course, we always talk about Nebraska football. That's a birthright, Nebraska football. you call, you talk about football, then you slip in something about life, then you slide back out about football. Yeah.
When you were part of that Trippin' on Tuesdays, that was basically all African American except you. Were you scared or nervous because maybe you didn't want to offend somebody, or?
Nah. And actually, there was a couple of the white folks in there. Predominantly it was all black crowd, but Eric Nicolaisen was in there and Maggie Benjamin was in there too. And Maggie could have been on freaking Saturday Night Live. She'd just come off of Broadway. She was on Rent on Broadway. But no, I never fearful. And that's the thing about comedy. In general, comedians are pretty thick-skinned people. I mean, they are. But there's no fear. There's lines you wouldn't want to cross. You wouldn't want to be saying something so stupid. Even in the sense of it's funny, it could fall terribly flat, right? Something coming out of my mouth versus something coming out of an African-American comic could be, I don't care how cool they think I am. It's not ever going to be cutting the mustard. But never fearful. Folks are folks, and, funny is funny. And so, when you go up there and you're doing funny stuff, that was never a concern of mine, so you didn't feel like somebody's going to be waiting outside the door to kick the crap out of you. It was always funny. The one thing was, like, when I knew Spike Lee was in the crowd, we were doing this thing called the freeze game, improv. The freeze game is like, let's say you and I are out there and we're talking, and one of the other group might say freeze, and you and I wouldn't move, whatever our position was. And then the other guy might jump in and tap you out, take that exact same position, and then all of a sudden start some other crazy scene from there. It doesn't have to be a continuation of what was going on, but so it just becomes something else. And I always remember that freeze game was going on, and it's one of the guys in the group, Sheik, was out there, and I froze, and I ran out there. I moved one guy out of the way. I jumped out, and I made it like he was Spike Lee, and I was just like a fan ranting at him. And I said, "Hey, it's Spike Lee from Do the Right Thing," knowing that Spike's like 4 feet from me in the front row, right? And so I'm looking at the other actor, and his eyes are getting big. He goes, "What are you doing?" Spike's right in the front row. I go, "Hey, you're Spike Lee from Do the Right Thing." I said, "Why don't you do the right thing and make a movie that makes some sense?" From down, he started laughing. And then I was doing these crazy camera angle things. And then afterwards, he was backstage, and he had a couple of his managers and agents and stuff. And he kind of looked at me. But it's like, what's he not going to do? Not put me in a movie that he's not put me in already? It's like, but he's a New York guy, and he knew, he appreciated it. I was just acknowledging him there and just doing it in a funny way. I know some people at first are going, "Huh!" But I was doing it, a funny thing. So, he wasn't offended.
So I heard you say once in an interview on a different podcast that somewhere around 95% of working actors today are making less than probably $5,000 a year. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, about how there's actors who make their living at it all the time, and then there's, of course, the superstar actors, but then also there's a group of actors that really maybe only do one or two things a year.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the thing is about this industry, it's incredibly hard. It's an industry of rejections, really. You hear no all the time, and then you hear yes every once in a while. Unless you're like a Viola Davis or a Christian Bell or an Amy Adams or Sam Rockwell, where you get a list of offers and you just decide what you want to do for the next 3 years. You get to pick them out. So it's a business that's not meant for everybody. But in terms of like financial stability thing, it's always a high wire act. Joni and I have been really fortunate. We've made a living. We made a flat out living as actors for a decade. The house we own, we bought, qualified to buy it as actors. We're like working class actors. We're people that make a living doing it. And like you said, that is a small percentage though of the business. Most people, they have survival jobs, whatever that is, whether it's waiting tables, whether it's an inside sales job, whatever those jobs are that allow them to have a flexible schedule. I'll never forget, there was one friend of ours who's an actor, Alex Morris. And Alex told me one time, and Alex is probably mid-60s now. He said, "Look, man, you got to wait in line." He goes, "You got to stay in line, not wait in line. You got to stay in line." And what he was saying is, he goes, "There's a lot of people come out here and they just give up too soon and they get out of line." He goes, "Because if you stay in line, your turn's going to come." And to me, he was a perfect example. He's a great, great actor. And all of a sudden, that TV show Fences, he's been recurring. He's close to being like a series regular, like recurring all the seasons. So here's a guy like, in his 60s, you're thinking, it's over. And here's that guy staying in line and like almost like a series regular for that show with Zach Galifianakis and those guys. And so For me, the thing is, I always tell people, you go into this business, it's very, very rare that there's somebody that walks in here who just walks in the door and all of a sudden they're world famous. There's a few, but that's about the same percentage as winning the lottery. So just because you were the homecoming king or the homecoming queen, which they're all out here, doesn't mean that equates to instant success. You've got to put in the time and you got to grind it. You got to work your craft. You got to get good at whatever it is you're going to do. It's just if you're going to be a doctor, you just couldn't show up and say, hey, I like science. They're going to say, okay, you're a doctor. Go operate on that guy. You and I would go, hell no, they're not touching you with that scalpel. What have they done? And so I think when the people come out here, they just got to get their mindset that they're going to have to grind and really work it hard. And, a lot of people, they do have to have those survival jobs. And I understand that. I mean, there's guys at my age that have those survival jobs because they love it so much that they want to do it that way. The only thing I caution people is, so don't come out here thinking, I'm going to give it 2 months. If I'm not a series regular or I'm not the star of a big movie, in 2 months I'm going back home, then don't even come out. Because the probability of you having that happen is almost none, unless you're related to somebody that owns a studio. So to me, I think the key is, though, you got to absolutely do what you love and love what you do. And if your passion is the arts and you feel like you cannot live another day unless you're involved with it, then you do it. But you may do it at a different level. You know what I mean? You may be somebody that's just happy being in Omaha doing theater, or Milwaukee doing community theater, whatever that is that scratches that itch for you. For me and Joni, it's a business, but I love it. I mean, there's something magical for me to walk on the studio. If I'm on Paramount or Disney or Sony or Fox, 20th Century, you name it, that is my happy place. I'm not kidding you. If I had to go there and shovel horse crap for a living, and if you told me I could go to Paramount every day, and that's what I was going to do to make a living, but I was going to do it at Paramount Studios, I'd probably go, I'm good. And I would do it till the day I dropped dead. Because for me to be at those places, that's what I love. But you got to be committed if you're going to be good at anything, I really believe, You really can't half-ass stuff and end up being really good. You might be able to get by. But it's not for the faint of heart, though.
How long were you acting before you felt confident enough to quit that tech job?
I quit the tech job and then I started acting.
Oh, really?
I was doing the Comedy Store stuff. Like, just to back up, I did one play in the 8th grade. The high school when I was at Hastings was doing the musical Oliver. And I got cast as an 8th grader to play the Artful Dodger. So I was one of the leads. And that is the scope of my really extensive act was doing that play in the 8th grade because I was more focused on sports. And when we got to Los Angeles, I mean, granted, remember, Joey and I was singing. We might be in front of thousands of people when we were singing. And that made my heart beat. My heart rate wouldn't go up one beat. I was totally comfortable up there. And right before the stuff at the Comedy Store, when we came down here, Joni asked me to go along. She was going to go audition a theater ensemble doing a bunch of one-act play. And I went with her for her audition. I'm sitting there, and I read for something, and I got cast in it. And then I got nominated for for the best new actor for that theater ensemble. So that was the first thing I ever did in L.A. was just by fluke. I'm sitting there with Joni. She's reading for something else, and I go read for this deal, and they cast me in it. And it was the world premiere, the West Coast of How to Go on a Date in Queens. And I played that goofball guy in it. So it was really just natural to me. It was totally natural because I think just being around, my mom and dad and my dad doing some Mark Twain stuff, it just intuitive to me. I did that play, do my high-tech deal, and then I just did a couple of I know what it was. How I got my SAG card was got a group of people filming one of those Hallmark movies in our neighborhood. And I'm coming home from lunch from work, and the guy knocks on the door. I answer the door, and the guy goes, you mind if we put a camera on your driveway because we're going to shoot across to your neighbor's house? I said, I don't care. And they look at our house. And Joey and I had this house up on the hills in Woodland Hills, had these amazing views. But the guy that built the house looked like it was built to be used for filming because there was all these open rooms in this middle outdoor area, but there's glass doors to all these different. It looked like it was filmed where you could have shooting, from outside in every room. And I said, if you guys ever want to use our place, I don't care. And this producer goes, I think we might do that. It was Kevin Clark. He calls me up about a week later and he goes, hey, can we use your place this next movie of the week? I think your house would be fine. We'd like to use it and we'll pay you. And I said, you know what? You don't have to pay me to use the house. I don't care. I just want you to put me and Joni in it. Give us a line and Taft Hartley us into the union. And the guy said he would do that. And so the first thing I did was Murder 101 with Dick Van Dyke.
Whoa.
And the scene I did was at our house. I'm a bad guy getting out of the car. They put on glasses on me like they didn't know if I could do anything, right? And I go up, and they have effects where I'm really shooting out our own door lock. You know, it's fake, of course. And then I'm shoving Dick Van Dyke over our couch. But that guy, Kyle Fart, he was to his word. He put me in it, gave me a line to be the union SAG. He couldn't put Joni in that one, but the next thing he did, he put Joni in that, and that's how we got into the union. So would you ask me, like, how long it took? That's what I did. And then when I left that day job for good, I took a couple of those technical classes for working with camera acting. And I'm telling you, 2 months later, I was going to Europe to do that movie. So I was getting paid from the very beginning.
That is an amazing story. You hear a lot about how, you know, you make your own luck, or you open your own doors, or you find those opportunities and, you know, you make hay with them. And I think that is a perfect example of, you know, making your own luck and really taking advantage of an opportunity. That's really awesome, Kirk. Well done.
And there's something that holds back some people. To me, the thing is, when that door gets open, I'm sprinting through it. Joni is sprinting through it. And a lot of people, sometimes there's doors that are open for them, and they're too afraid to walk through them. And so there could be a huge opportunity on that other side, and they just don't go. And it could be they're going, I'm not good enough. You know, I don't know. I got to go do something else first. And those doors don't stay open forever. And this is another perfect example. And Joni and I are a pure team. We are Team Bovill to the day we die. Everything we do is focused on that. I'll never forget. I did the pilot for Bosch, the TV show that Joni's in. I did the pilot playing this uber-violent foster father of the lead character on flashbacks of his backstory. So I shoot that. And then the showrunner, Eric Overmeyer, who I think also created The Wire off the top of my head, Eric, he emails me, and when they were cutting the pilot, he goes, I really like what you did, man. I just want to let you know that. So I had his email, and I said, hey, thanks a lot. So you fast forward, Joni's all of a sudden getting ready to go. She gets called in to audition for that show. It's the same day she's auditioning as when she's working in the first season on How to Get Away with Murder, working with Viola Davis. So her agent goes, I guess I'll just cancel your audition because you're working on How to Get Away with Murder. I said, well, wait, don't say that. I emailed the showrunner, who, you know, the executive producer of the show, Eric Overmeyer, because he had emailed me. I said, wait, tell your agent don't do that. I emailed him, and I said, hey, Eric, this is Kirk. I appreciate you having my wife come in and read for that role. Man, she'd love to do it, but she's working with Viola Davis today. Could she put it on tape and get it to you tomorrow? That guy emailed me back and says, yeah, go ahead and put it on tape and send it to us at like 9:30 in the morning. So I'm calling her agent. I'm going, don't worry about it. So I didn't tell Joni this because she was on the set with Viola. Joni gets home about 12:30 at night. I said, honey, I hate to do this to you, but you got to stay up and learn these lines because I need to film you about 7 in the morning. And we need to send it by it was 8 or 8:30, something like that. I said, for Bosch. And so she came home tired as hell. She learned those lines. We filmed her in the morning. We sent it. A week later, she gets a call. And now you look at it, she just finished season 5. And that is when you talk about where, you know, you've earned the right to ask somebody, and some people maybe would have never done that. But if I had pushed back to her agent and contacted the guy, because a lot of people in Hollywood go, oh, you shouldn't be contacting that guy. I'm going, why not? The worst he could do is say no. And he had actually already emailed me to begin with. So he said, sure, Joni's good enough. They love her. And she's finished up season 5 and she'll be getting ready to start season 6 in the middle of this year. And to me, those are things I tell people as examples of doors that were open. Somebody might have said, I'm not calling him. I'm saying, why would I not? He reached out to me already. So I've earned the right to say something to him.
That's true. And, you know, Joni already didn't have that job. So what, like you said, what did she have to lose by you reaching out? Exactly.
It's like, I honestly, you know, my folks always had instilled in me, it was drilled in me that I could really be anything I wanted to be if I put in the effort. So I truly believe that. Whether I was coaching, whether I was in high tech, whether I was doing music, whether I'm writing now or like with acting, I truly believe that I belong. And then the battle is always to get the opportunity to prove it. So I don't do what I do to validate myself. I don't go and do a film so people can see me on the street and go, ooh, you were Henry Kissinger. I don't do it for that. I do it just for the thrill of being out there creating stuff. The other stuff is a byproduct, right? I'm not trying to chase validation. I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm just trying to do what I love doing. And it's really worked out for us.
Hey, streetwalkers. Well, you're not literally streetwalkers. But now that I've got your attention, I am Stephen O'Reilly, and I have a podcast called the Bar Star Podcast. And since you're listening to the Fascination Street podcast, I think you should check out my show. It's just as interesting without all the famous people, because Steve has connections that I just do not have. But if you dig podcasts about music, working musicians, and other random shit that I decided to talk about, based around music, of course, because that's what I do. I'm a working musician for the past 30 years, then you need to check out the Bar Star Podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcast, on any platform, and make sure you check out barstarpodcast.com. Now back to the one and only Steve Owens and whatever the hell he was talking about.
Now, looking at both of your resumes, you guys have done a lot of the same shows. Do y'all work together a lot?
Not really. We've been in some of the same shows, but in the different seasons. We maybe one or two things. And honestly, you know, I mean, just a few things. It just worked out the way. It'll be kind of funny if there was actually one episode recently. It was on the TV shows, one of the big ones, and they both brought us in to read. And I said, wouldn't it be wild if we're in the same scene? You know, like whatever it is, like you're playing like a lawyer and I'm playing like some hardened criminal. Same scene. But there was one network that did have us come in and read for the same show, which would have been funny. Like I think we did pop up maybe in one of the same episodes of Bosch, and there was a movie we both popped up in at one time.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's got to be really cool. I mean, obviously, you know, you guys really are Team Bovill all the way, so that's got to be really cool to just be able to hang out and work together, at least sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, because for us, generally, probably 99% of our auditions, we carpool everything. It's just faster to get in and out of town. So everybody knows us as Team Bovill, because if it's an audition for Joni, well, I'll drive. I'll drop her off. I'll go park the car, and I might go in there and wait with her in the lobby. So all the people in her category, they know me because they see Joni with me. And if it's the other way, she might be dropping me off and she might come in later on, and they all know Joni. There's been times I've gone in to read for a movie and the casting people go, hey, is Joni here? I go, yeah, she's outside. Just a second. They'll go outside to go talk to Joni, then come back in and do the audition. It goes both ways. So that we're around each other 24/7. I mean, sometimes it's good in a marriage to have some breaks, but for us, it just works. Some people it's good where you have, like, you both have different 9-to-5 jobs. You know, you wake up, you go there, and you go there, and you come back together at night. But we're with each other 24/7. But we're sneaking up on, like, 24 years of marriage. So it works for us, you know.
That's really cool. How long were you together before you found out she was the daughter of a sharecropper?
It had been a while. You know, honestly, I have to think about that, you know, because it wouldn't be something that would have came up, like, in the first conversation. Probably something organically over that year, you know, or because it wasn't anything she was ever ashamed of, you know, it wasn't anything she hid from. Like, her mom was the help. And, you know, her dad was a sharecropper. Of all those kids, she was the youngest, but she was the first to be able to go to college because no one had money to go to college. The older generation, they were all working out in the fields with their dad. I mean, legitimately with their dad. Some didn't go to school probably after, maybe to high school, some probably 8th grade, the older set. So for Joni, she didn't have like indoor plumbing till she was 5th grade. You know, where Joni grew up in Mississippi, you know, their home church was burned down in the 60s a couple times by the Klan. When Joni was in college, you know, at Southern Miss as an undergrad, she ran for the homecoming queen. One of the white fraternities was campaigning against having a black woman win. Right beside her, when she's campaigning, you know, you'd campaign, there'd be a guy standing right beside her going, we can't let a black woman win. Even in spite of what he did, she was still the runner-up. She was the only one of 2 African-American women in the first 75 years of Southern Miss that were either the winner or the runner-up. So you would think, when you fast forward with those life experiences, that the last person she'd be married to would be a guy who's not a redneck but looks like one. And that's because the way she was raised, she was never going to let that oppression define her. Never, never. She was never going to let it take her joy. She was never going to let it just define her to be bitter and angry or something. That's the first thing I ever saw in her, was just this tremendous joy. I mean, that's how she is. And you've talked to her before. She's happy when she gets up. She's happy when she goes to bed. It's a total conscious thing for her. So for us, that is a part of her past. One time her mom told me, and it was amazing, when her mom was alive, I said, man, I can't imagine what it would have been like for you growing up in Mississippi. She said, well, you know, them times was tough, but they were the good old days too. You know, so she was thinking, putting the spin on it. So instead of just being angry and bitter, she goes, hey, there were still some good times in there too. And But it's a part of her, it's so interesting, But I'll tell you what, her family is extremely tight. And it just shows you it's not money that makes a family, man. It's that love, and they are so connected. Her siblings, those guys are uber connected. I mean, they would do anything for each other at any time. I guarantee you, I could call one of them in Mississippi and say, I need something. Somebody would be in a truck driving it here. If that's what had to happen, they would do that.
Well, that is super inspirational. And I'll tell you, like I told her, if I was her, every time I introduce myself to anybody, I would say, hi, I'm Joni Bovill, the daughter of a sharecropper. Every single time. Because that is one of the coolest designations that is gone. It's over. There's not going to be any more of those. And I just think that is awesome. I told her she needs to name her book, The Daughter of a Sharecropper. That is such an awesome moniker.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing you think about it, Her oldest brother, is multi-Grammy nominated, is one of the Weems brothers, It's really cool, I mean, it's who she is, it's what part of made her who she is, and she's thrived, She has a great story to tell.
All right, transitioning a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the early 1940s, there was a movie called The Tales of Manhattan that basically followed the life of a tuxedo jacket around Manhattan. And then in the 90s, there was a movie called 20 Bucks. They basically spent a day in the life of a $20 bill. I want to know if you are anytime soon going to make your version of that called The Bench.
Yeah, I know. I need to do that one. Yeah, you talked to Joni, I can tell. Yeah, The Bench is I need to just really sit down and write it. For the listeners, there's a bench in our house that Joni sat on as a child, that her mom sat on as a child, that her grandma sat on as a child, and I think maybe her great-great is probably from her great-great, who was probably either a descendant of a slave or real close. And so I've always wanted to do either a play, it could be probably a play work really well, and to cover the time frame of the huge moments that have happened in society during the existence of that bench, also the transitions of the different types of music during that era, those different eras. And then that bench can become symbolic of anything. It could be a church pew, it could be a back of a bus, it could be in a hospital, it could be in school, and tell the story of the history, whether it's a family history that has happened over the course of the existence of that bench. That bench is easily over 100 years old. You're right, though. I need to sit down. That's funny. Maybe that's when the bug in my ear to sit down and just knock that out, because it's been in my head for a long time. Like, I know exactly what to do with it. It's just a matter of setting it down, because you could do it as a play where you transition with music, because Joe and I both sing, but you could do it with the music, and you could do those different eras. You could do like some 1920s swing, of course, the jazz stuff, the blues stuff, the 60s, 70s, everything up to now.
Yeah, I think that'd be amazing. I'm really interested in hearing and seeing that story, because I think that would be phenomenal. Because like you said, you could go through decades.
Yeah.
It's in the South, so you could do a lot, and you can weave civil rights into it. Park benches, bus benches, and heck, you can even.
Exactly.
I mean, you can even have the final descendant or whatever who ends up with that bench. You could end with them sitting as a judge on a bench or whatever. I mean,
exactly.
The possibilities are endless, and I think that is just such a beautiful, beautiful story.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize they come in and there's this simple bench or stuff on it, and again, remember, it's like with me with that guitar, that will never leave the house, that bench, right? I mean, that's like, that would be getting packed up and shipped to the next generation of somebody. But when, you look at it, it's like Joni's mother was alive. Her mom would probably be close to 100. Let me think about this.
Well, because she's the youngest. She's the youngest of 11 or something, right? So her mom would be up there.
She's up there. So you start going back, it's up there in tons of years. I think one time I figured out it was probably like early 1900s it was built, I'm thinking. But you're right. There's so much stuff. The political changes, the civil rights changes, everything. There's just a million things you can do with that. And you can weave in, real stories from her family, the fabric of her family and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. You can weave in the Williams brothers, everything. You can even weave in technology, because, it basically went from the telegraph, to the radio, to the telephone, the television, to computers. The world is your oyster on that one, my friend.
It truly is.
So let's talk a little bit about your actual work. What was it like to work on Sons of Anarchy?
You know what? Everything I've worked on has always been incredibly fun, but Sons of Anarchy was so cool because I was doing an Irish accent. It was a season they were in Ireland, went over to Ireland. And so it was funny. I'm doing an Irish guy. I'm an American doing an Irish guy. And you have Charlie Hunnam, who was the lead, who's really British, doing an American accent, and he might drop out of it between takes. But the thing I always remember the most about it, Ron Perlman comes out, and Ron Perlman played his dad in that. And Ron Perlman's this big, tough-looking dude, and he is a tough dude. But I always remember, I'll never forget about that. Ron comes up, and I'm standing there, and there's a couple of background actors there as well. He went around, and he introduced himself to everybody and said hello and welcome to the set. And I always thought that was amazing because he didn't have to do that. And I told him that. I ran into him like a year later. I said, it really meant a lot to me because you're one of the stars of the show. You could have just kind of walked up there, to shoot the scene. But you made a point to do that. And he goes like, well, who doesn't have time to do that? Because there's a lot of guys that don't. But I always thought that was, to me, jumped out with that. And I can't think of the director's name for that episode. It wasn't Kurt Sutter. But it was a guy that looked like Keith Richards. I mean, he had rings all his fingers. He looked like a total rock star. I can't remember the guy's name, but that was cool. All those dudes, they're all tougher than hell. But that was a lot of fun.
Talk about setting the tone for the set. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'll tell you another one that was wild, tone setter. When I did 20th Century Women, and that was an Oscar-nominated film, and Mike Mills was the director and the writer. And that's with Annette Bening, Elle Fanning, Greta Gerwig, Billy Crudup. And we're shooting these scenes in a set in the 70s. And we're shooting the scenes, it's supposed to be like this dinner scene. And they're set up this long shot. And you hear classical music. And I go, oh, that's kind of cool. Mike's playing classical music to keep it calm while they're setting up the shot. They're blocking the shot. It's in this old big house. And I look up on the second floor. There's a live cello player up there playing. Live.
Seriously?
So music playing while they were doing all this. And then they stopped when we filmed. Next day they had like violinists up there playing classical music. And it was wild. I thought, look, this is how he set the tone. This guy was literally sitting there just, that's how he did it. So I thought that was amazing. I thought it was just like piped in music. I thought was cool. I looked up and go, he's playing, there's a live musician. That one was amazing to me. I thought when I did NCIS, again, we went for the table read, and that's where all the actors go, and they're reading through the script that they're getting ready to shoot. And so the cast will come in, they just read through it. And I remember all the lead guys came in, Mark Harmon, all those guys. Mark went around the room introducing who he was, and everybody knew who he was, but he was going, hey, I'm Mark Harmon. And he would look you right in the eye, shake your hand, he goes, thanks for coming on board. All those lead actors went right down the line. And I thought, man, isn't that amazing? They've been doing that show forever, but they're still knowing what it was like, not to be the star and making everybody welcome on the set. And that, to me, those are the things that always lock in my mind, like of wow factor. Same thing on when I shot that recent one that's out now, Vice. Christian Bale came up to me first day we're shooting. He walks up, and I'm looking just like Kissinger, and he's looking just like Dick Cheney. He's come up going, hi, I'm Christian. Like I didn't know it was him. But he was just being a nice guy instead of just like walking by and looking at me going, hey, don't screw it up, okay? He was a good guy. Those are the things you always take away.
Well, that's really cool to hear a good story about Christian, because you really only hear stories of him having a bad day. So that's a good one. Thanks for that.
He's a total family guy. I had him laughing so hard when we had the world premiere. I got asked to go backstage, and that was surreal. I was just happy to be at the premiere. And they're getting ready to walk down the carpet, some interviews, and somebody from Annapurna, the distributor, stops you and goes, Kirk, we need you backstage in 40 minutes because we want to introduce you with the lead cast. I'm going, really? Okay. They come and get me, and I'm standing in the side stage with Christian Bale, Sam Rockwell, Andy Adams, Steve Carell, Justin Kirk, Adam McKay. It's surreal. And Christian comes up to me, and I'm going, hey, and I could tell he had no idea who I was. I go, hey, I'm Kirk Bovill. He goes, hey, I'm Christian. I go, you know me as Henry Kissinger. And he goes, holy crap, that was you? That was you? He goes, I would have never known. He goes, because he only saw me on the set. He goes, I would have never guessed that was you. He goes, oh, you had me laughing so hard. And he said the same thing to me at the after party. He came up to me and did the same beeline. He goes, it's just amazing. Because, he put on 60 pounds to play that role.
Sure.
And I looked totally different, unrecognizable. But I thought that was cool. So for me, when I saw him, even at the after party, he was laughing. He goes, I can't believe that was you. You had me laughing so hard. And when he was when we were shooting, It was all about business. We were highly, highly focused. Even when we were doing the funny stuff, it was still focused, except when they would cut, we would laugh so hard and reset to do it again. The first time we were shooting our scene, it was a super serious scene. And then Adam McKay, the director, had us expand it out, and we were improvising it. And I can improv with anybody, but it's hard to do it with that Kissinger accent. That's hard. So that was a challenge. And I'm up there doing it with Steve Carell, who's world-class improv. And we're doing that, but it's a serious scene. Then all of a sudden, Adam gives Christian a crazy alternative line, and Christian just laughing. Everybody's laughing. And then when he finally gets through the line, like, okay, what it is, but he do it, and then he just tell me, he goes, you just go ahead and react as Kissinger, whatever. And that's what's used in the movie. But I would be doing this crazy stuff, and they would cut, and we would all just laugh so hard. And I'll never forget, one camera is on one side of Christian, one's on the other side of him, and they're both pointing at me. We're in the Oval Office, so it's supposed to be President Ford. So the guy playing President Ford is to my left, Christian's right in front of me, across the desk, and then Steve Carell is playing Rumsfeld is over there by Christian. And when I start doing these wild riff things, I could see out of my corner of my eye the guy playing President Ford, Bill Clapp, who had just won an Emmy, he was starting to slowly start shaking from laughter, so he was leaning out of the shot. Even though he was dirty focused, it really wasn't on him, he was leaning back because he didn't want to all of a sudden have him in frame, and if he's shaking, you could tell he's laughing, he's leaning way back. But I could see Christian's eyes. He was totally Cheney, but his eyes were starting to glass over, where you could tell somebody when they're trying not to laugh because the cameras aren't on him, and I'm looking right at him, but I'm being dead serious. What I'm saying is insane. You can see his eyes starting to water because he was holding when he said cut. But
that's awesome.
Oh, man, that was fun. That was so fun.
So, besides Vice, which is in theaters now, and I would imagine is going to clean up come award season, besides that, what can we see you in coming up? What do you got going on?
There's a project with Kevin Hart. It hasn't really been officially announced, but it'll be this year. It's really funny, super funny. I just can't tell you more about it. I don't know what they're waiting on, but it's with Kevin Hart, really funny. And, just back at the grind, looking for the next thing, like last month I was on NCIS. The month before that I was on Young Sheldon. I was just on Dead Wax, just came out. So there was a whole bunch of stuff like in November that was coming out that I was in, like boom, 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 boom. And then this thing with Kevin will come out soon. It'll come out pretty quick. You'll hear about it pretty soon.
Now, is that thing with Kevin, does it have a historical bent?
Yeah, it does.
All
yeah,
right, cool.
Super fun.
Very cool.
Super funny. Yeah.
Well, Kirk, I know we didn't get a whole lot of chance to talk about your music, but can you talk about that real quick? I know you guys put out records, and Joni was cool enough to let me play Are You Ready, the title track from that album.
Yeah.
So what made you pick that particular genre?
I just think that there were some of the songs I had written, actually, like maybe when I was in my early 20s, that I just sat on. And I really feel when I got really connected to faith and just more really deeply rooted in faith, that's where that gospel music came out. And that's where the door opened up. I mean, I had some stuff. Some of it I'd written years ago. They were totally different lyrics, but that's what I decided that's what we're going to do. We were going to do it. All that stuff kind of came flowing. Like when we did Are You Ready, when I wrote that, I was really writing about a friend of ours, a good friend of mine, and we were great friends. He's one of the guys that travels around the world all the time in high tech, Scott Schaefer. And I originally wrote that song with him in mind because he had been diagnosed with cancer and he died within a couple months. So he was diagnosed where it was so far gone that he died shortly after that. And he and I were extremely close. And so I was always writing that song, that whole inspiration for that album, that Are You Ready, was thinking about him and what he was going through. And I was able to talk to him, till the day he died. And when it came out, it was really close to around, when the album came out, the song had already been recorded, but like around 9/11, 9/11. Because I know there's another song in it we referenced 9/11. But when the album came out, I'll never forget when the first time this was being played, where we sang it, we were back up in Northern California. The church we used to belong to up there, Jubilee Christian Center in San Jose. And so we went up there to sing it first. And we're singing it, and I see a woman in the front row crying. And we literally go backstage, and we really had to head right back to the airport to go back to Los Angeles, not knowing that the woman. Then all of a sudden, as we're walking, I can hear them reciting the lyrics from that song, Are You Ready? That woman's on stage reciting that. Her husband was one of those guys, I think was on the Flight 93 that fought when the hijackers had the plane, the one that went down, those guys fought it and crashed. Her husband was those guys in that plane that died fighting those guys. And so how that impacted her and how it resonated for her. So that is how we got used the music, you know. So I was writing that kind of stuff, inspirational stuff. And there's stuff that Joni sings that people contact us a lot and say, hey, you know, I was going through chemo or cancer treatment, and I played Joni's song "There Is Joy" nonstop, 24 hours a day. The minute I woke up to the minute I went to sleep, and that's really why you do that. But there's some pop songs too that I'm still sitting on that I'm probably going to go and do some co-writing. I might do some with Andy Lawrence. Andy's one of the Lawrence brothers, you know, like Joey Lawrence. He's the youngest one, and he's a great actor. We worked together on a Dead Rising 3, and he recurs on Hawaii Five-0. But he's a great singer and musician. And I think I might do some stuff with him and just let him, you know, just go record it. Like, you know, go in and write with him and then let Andy do his thing. But I know I need to get my butt back in there and do some stuff musically, though. So.
Well, very cool. Did you say that song was called There Is Joy?
Yeah, so There Is Joy's on that first album. That's on the first one. If you don't have it, let me know, and I can get it to you. But I love it. Joni sings that song. It's phenomenal. That song should be a music video.
Can I play it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Because what you can do is on the front end of it, it's got like a little girl and Joni talking. But if you even cut up past that to pick up right where the song starts, that song is phenomenal. It's so good. I mean, the main thing about the music, it was so funny, it shocked people was, again, it's like when the doors open up, you cannot be afraid to go through them. So here was a guy that wrote my first song at 10. But I'm putting out my first album at 39, which is normally when you never do it, right?
Yeah.
And Joni and I, I'm 41. I'm doing another album where we get distribution. CCM Magazine reviewed the album, and they called us. The guy said we're easily one of the 5 best indie artists he's ever heard in the 10 years he's been covering the industry. And here I was doing it at 41. And they were going, I don't know how to describe what this guy's sound is because he's fusing like funk and rock and hip hop. And I go, that's because these are all these different things I listen to, and it influenced me. But, you know, we were using guys from Tower of Power, Earth, Wind and Fire, Santana players. I did it with the spirit of excellence. I go, we're doing it, we're going to do it good. And it shocked people because they're going, who are these guys? And why just, because musically, and you've heard our stuff, musically, it is so good because the musicians were just so good. And they all wanted to make as good as they could. I mean, the Tower of Power horn guys, they come in. The Earth, Wind and Fire guy come in. He goes, can I do it again? I think I got another one in me that's better. And my jaw would be dropping because he was so good already. I'm going, if you want to, sure. You know? Yeah. It's just interesting because it's been like a really surreal life and adventure. I mean, it's mind-blowing because sometimes I can think about it. We might get happy birthday greetings, and it might be from somebody who's an Olympic gold medalist. It might be somebody who's an Oscar winner. It might be somebody who's won an Emmy. It might be somebody who's got patents and high tech. It might be somebody who's a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse. It could be somebody that's famous writer with books, directors. So it's crazy. You know, it could be somebody who's a pro baseball player, a pro football player, or some singer. And that's, to me, is what's nuts. You know, when I think about it, I was this guy that grew up in a farm town of 3,500. And, you know, and to have that such a broad range of people that have crossed our paths. But I also believe it's because we've walked through a lot of doors that were open for us without fear. And because of that, other doors continue to open.
Well, yeah. I think that is awesome. As we're heading out, Kirk, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, on Instagram is Wahoo Slim. And my dad grew up in Wahoo, Nebraska, and that's where my grandma and grandpa lived for years. I got a script called Wahoo Slim. So Wahoo Slim on Instagram, and then Kirk Bovill on Twitter, Kirk Bovill on Facebook. And then there's kirkbovill.com as well.
Very cool. I will put all of those links in the show notes for this episode.
Yeah.
Kirk Bovill, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today and let us get to know you a little bit better.
I appreciate it. You know, anytime. I mean, for me and Joni, it's all about just trying to help folks. I think we inspire folks because we're people that started doing some of what we're doing at a later age. And whatever that thing is you have a desire to do, might not necessarily be what we're doing, but you're never too old to be what you want to be. I mean, you know, I'm not going to be a pro football player, but there's a lot of opportunities for people that they don't have to just flush their dreams down the drain because they hit a certain age or something. They may change, but we just try to really, truly inspire people that there's stuff you can do, man, and there's stuff you can dream about doing that you might think you can't, but you can. So And we're living proof of that. We're totally living proof of that.
Yeah, you guys are, both of you.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Kirk.
You bet.
I think I've taken up enough of your time today, and I want you to enjoy the rest of your day in sunny California.
All right, even though it's kind of raining right now, but you're right. Normally it is sunny.
I had to pick the one day a year it rains to call it sunny.
Exactly. All right, cool, man. All right, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Kirk. This was a lot of fun. You have a good day. And tell Joni I said hi.
I will do that. I'll do that. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Some nights there wasn't much on the table. That never stopped us from giving God thanks. Mama and Daddy did the best that they could. Always reminded us that God is good. We walked by faith, not by sight. Lived on love, knowing God would provide. We never stopped praising our Lord Jesus Christ. Through the good times and bad, He has been by our side. Walked by faith, not by sight. Lived on love, knowing God will provide. We never stop praising our Lord Jesus Christ. In the morning there is joy. Know what it's like to feel poverty sting. How folks without hope can lose their dream. But I was raised believing God would provide, and there is a purpose in everyone's life. Just walk by faith, not by sight. Live on love, know that God will provide. Don't ever stop praising our Lord Jesus Christ. Through the good times and bad, He will be by your side. Walk by faith, not by sight. Live on love, knowing God will provide. Don't ever stop praising our Lord Jesus Christ. In the morning there is joy. Walk by faith, not by sight. Live on love, knowing God will provide. Don't ever stop praising our Lord Jesus Christ. In the morning there is joy. My daddy went to heaven when I was 13. Mama stood strong, doing the best she could. She held our broken hearts together with love, always reminding us that God is good. She said, walk by faith, not by sight. Live on love, know that God will provide. Don't ever stop praising our Lord Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. In the morning there is joy. Walk by faith, not by sight. Live on love, knowing God
Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.